All right, we are going live. All right. Welcome to the Lovecraft Easing podcast. It's May the 30th, 2021. And with our previous break-in the new computer, if you guys watching live would let me know if you can hear me, I would really appreciate that. So I'll keep an eye on the text chat here. So let me know if you can hear me. So with that said, our guest is Beau Johnson, author Beau Johnson. How are you today, Beau?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Good. Oh, yes, they can hear us. All right, problem solved. Um, and we've got a special panelist today, Laura Hightower. Hey, Laura.
Hey, how are you guys?
I'm good. I'm good.
Excellent.
So I tweeted today and reminded people about the show and that Beau was going to be on the show. And I didn't realize that Laurel and Beau knew each other. So Laurel got really excited and posted something on Twitter. And I'm sure the audience will remember that I had you on the show several weeks ago talking about your book Crossroads, which I love. And so I emailed Laurel and I said, hey, you want to come on the show today if you got time? And she said, yeah. And so I said, then I replied, this is the really funny part. I replied, awesome, that'll make a really easy day for me. Except I was on my phone returning the email and it came out, awesome writer day for me. So I know that's weird. The autocorrect corrected easy to writer, which name of your character is
Right, Bishop Ryder, yeah.
Yeah, Bishop Ryder. So
that's fucking
funny.
awesome.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? So let's do introductions and then we'll move on to Beau here. I'm Mike Davis with Lovecraft Easing. And why don't we start with Melissa?
Hey everyone, I'm Melissa, horror fan. I also have a blog where I review horror and dark fantasy. And a Lovecraft Easing panelist.
Exactly. And you just recently reviewed a Ramsey Campbell book, right? That'll be up soon.
Yes. Yeah, I'm going to send you a link for that. That's Searching Dead by Ramsey Campbell. It's like
cool.
The first of three. They're reprinting some of his books. I think that was printed in a hardcover a few years ago, and they're releasing them in a soft cover. So yes.
When will your review be up and where?
It's going to be up on my site, dunwichreview.com. I'll send you a link when it's up.
Great. I'll boost the signal on that.
Thank you.
All right, Bridget.
Hello, I am Bridget, also a horror fan. Write music, create art.
And you have a Kickstarter coming up soon.
I
don't know how little or how more you want to say about it right now, but you're hoping for June the 1st, a couple days from now?
Yes, a couple days from now. So I don't have a link yet, but it's for a book that you can, it's a workbook that you can use to learn how to write spooky music. But if you are interested, my webpage is bridget-brynmark.com, and you can sign up for my mailing list and you'll get an email when the Kickstarter is live.
Yeah, and I think that's just I don't think I've seen anyone do that before. I'm sure they have, but if they did, I missed it. It's just a really cool idea. So, and I've seen some of your artwork and other work on this, and I think people are really going to love this. So
I hope so. Thanks,
yeah,
Mike.
Yeah. Hey, Rick, you want to introduce yourself?
Rick Lay, writer and book magazine collector.
How are your teeth?
Good.
Did a root canal last week. Fun stuff. So
I get the crown in 2 weeks.
Oh no. Laurel, you want to introduce yourself for those who missed you last time?
Sure. Laurel Hightower. I am also a horror fan, and sometimes I write horror. I have 2 books out, Whispers in the Dark and Crossroads. And I am a big fan of Beau Johnson and Bishop Ryder.
Who? Oh,
he's a fan of you too. Yeah.
Right. The guest, right? Yeah. So, as listeners know, my little buddy, AKA my son, who's 2 inches taller than me, but will always be my little buddy, is my tech guy now. And he added something I'd never heard of, which starts today. If you're watching live on YouTube, if you're listening later, this doesn't apply. And if you want to help out or get some extra stuff, just Google Lovecraft Easy and Patreon. But apparently in the live chat right now, there's something called super chats, and you can, give like tips, little tips to Lovecraft Easy, and give me $5 or $1 or whatever. I'm not sure exactly how it works. I'm sure I will after a couple of sessions, but I'm told it's pretty easy to do. So somebody give it a try. I'm sure Kelly is watching no matter where he is and wants to pledge like $100. So, that'll be our first test. So anyway, thanks in advance for anyone who does that and supports the show. Someone told me recently to follow your dreams. You won't necessarily be poor, but you have to be willing to be poor. And I do really love what I'm doing. And no, it doesn't pay much, but it does keep the lights on. So thank you to the Patreons and everyone else who gives financially. So with that said, I just think that's pretty cool. I'm really getting high tech now, or my son is. So I want to say something because this is happening more and more. And this is a great thing. About the community of Lovecraft Easing. Several times a week now, we're doing various things. So starting from Sunday through Saturday, obviously on Sunday, we do the podcast, which we're doing right now at 6 o'clock Eastern time. And then most Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock Eastern, I'm doing an old time radio hour or so, usually 2 episodes, handpicked by me. Obviously, anyone can go online and listen to any old time radio show that they want, but I've been listening to this stuff for, 45 years now. So, the ones that I put out there are ones that I think the audience will like, and the ones that I think are especially good. And they work pretty much like this. You don't see anyone's face like you're seeing my face now if you're watching. But everyone can text chat while the audio show is going. So it's pretty fun. So that's every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Central. And you can find that just by going to the Lovecraft Easing on YouTube. So if you don't know where that is, just Google Lovecraft Easing YouTube. It'll take you right to it. And it's one of the playlists. Just scroll down a little bit. So, that's Tuesdays. Now on Thursdays, if you're a Patreon, every other Thursday we get together with the panelists. The Patreons get together with the panelists, $10 and up reward, and we just chat. Alan, one of my patrons, says it's kind of like a little mini Necronomicon. So we have a lot of fun, and it's not recorded. It's not broadcast. Just a lot of fun. That's every other Thursday. And then the alternating Thursday, I do a Patreon podcast with, with a guest. For example, the last one was with Kelly Young, and we talked about the multiverse of Stephen King and so forth. So there's that. And then last but not least, Matthew Carpenter. Matthew, did you introduce yourself? Did I miss you? Oh, I'm so sorry. It's been one of those days. I missed the older panelists at times, so I apologize for that.
I've got a prize today,
all right,
which is a magazine. It is an archive issue of Famous Monsters of Filmland, and it's all Godzilla. The whole thing is a Godzilla book. So if you want it, send an email to easingprizes@gmail.com and put Godzilla in the subject heading. We will do a random drawing to determine a winner in about 4 or 5 weeks. So you got plenty of time to get your drawing in. The only way you could possibly not have a chance to win is if you don't enter. Sometimes we have a great prize and 3 entries, so you never know what your chances might be.
Langan's going to be sending you an email for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry I skipped you. Next time, just yell out, "Hey, Mr. Fibrofog, you forgot somebody." But anyway, last but not least, on Saturday nights at what is it, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central? Is that right?
The movie actually starts about 9 Central US time,
Okay.
but we open up the party about 45 minutes earlier.
So what it is Matt hosts Lovecraft Easy Movie Night, and it's a lot of fun. And you're basically watching the movie with other, Lovecraft Easy followers that show up, and you can text chat with each other while you watch the movie. So it's pretty neat. And all the links, if you forget all of this, I've got a link to my, in the show notes to my Linktree page. And every single one of the things that I'm talking about is there organized. Social media, this stuff, and a lot of other things. So you can find it all there. Talked about Bridget's upcoming Kickstarter, and I think that's it. So let's talk to Beau. How are you doing today, Beau?
Oh, I'm doing okay. I was
That's
looking
good.
forward to this. It finally happened. We had some
Yes.
technical difficulties, didn't we?
Yeah, did. And I had some sickness difficulties, and it was a perfect storm.
Yeah, it happens. Life gets in the way.
So you're much nicer than your Bishop Ryder character, by the way.
Yeah, I say there's only probably about 10% of me in there. Yeah.
Laurel's going to ask you some questions, but I'm going to give you some names here, okay?
Mhm.
Which is good because my last couple days, my voice is going, so, which is good news for my wife, I'm sure. But I'm going to give you some names. All right, first name's Bishop Ryder. You know who that is.
I do.
Isaiah Coleridge,
Oh, yeah.
Spencer, Hawk, and Jack Reacher. Now the question is, which of these guys would win in a fight? That's the question. And you're going to offend someone, I think, no matter what you say. So,
Yeah. All right. But I just think, imagine the team up if we just all teamed up.
Oh my God, these guys
Imagine
would
the
rule the
bodies.
world. That is a peaceful political answer. That's great. I like that. I've talked to Laird about the Spencer series,
Mhm.
and he said something that I really liked, that he would love to see some fiction devoted to Hawk, because he's not a Spencer sidekick. He's a very interesting character in his own right. So yeah, that would be pretty cool. But I asked this because one reviewer said that Bishop Ryder could kick Jack Reacher's ass. So
I think, yeah, that's nice of them to say, but I prefer the team up.
yeah, you're probably right. Well, tell us a little bit about you and how you got into writing, and then I'm gonna let Laurel take over for a while.
Sure. Well, like everybody, I think I started writing young. I liked it, but what really did it was, I think I've told Laurel this before. When I was 15, I got my first real job, and I bought my brother Misery.
Oh,
And
wait
he
a
wouldn't
minute.
read it.
I forgot Rick too.
What's that?
No, I didn't forget Rick.
No.
I introduced Rick.
So I bought him Misery, and he wouldn't read it. So I said, fuck it, I'm going to read it. And I was hooked on reading ever since. I've read everything at King, and that's what got me started on writing. And I've just been writing, not ever since. I always said, in my 20s, your friends got in the way, girlfriends got in the way, then marriage got in the way, and then kids got in the way. And I really didn't get back to it till I was 33 when my third child was born. And so I've been writing ever since. Yeah.
What were your influences?
Oh, King for sure. Yeah. Like I first started out with science fiction, Monster of the Week. And then about 10 years ago, I stumbled onto Shotgun Honey and fell in love with crime fiction. And I've been there ever since.
Would you, and this is my last question before Laurel takes over, would you classify the books that you're writing as noir? To some degree, at least.
I can't say really noir. I just say more crime, right? There's no fedoras or anything, and there's no private eye or Some people do call it noir. I don't. I just call it crime. And that's about my answer. Yeah.
Well, it all comes down to just labels, but I think noir, like the term weird fiction, it means something different to depending on who you ask. So
Well, there's a lot of opinions. That's for sure. Yeah.
yeah. So Laurel, hey, thanks for being on the show today. This was nice of you to come on.
Yeah, absolutely. I was glad to come back. Thank you all for letting me come back.
For those of you who have not read Crossroads, that is that is a gut punch of a novella. And
5 stars. 5 stars.
yes,
Thank you.
And I highly recommend that you buy that and read it. So
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm really excited to be on here talking to Beau again. I bothered him a few months ago when I was on the Ink Heist podcast. So since I've already asked you a lot of my like standard questions, I decided to go completely off script and pull some other stuff.
All right.
So I'm going to start with, I need to know your favorite brand of wood chipper. What is the specific one, and what are its merits above the others? Do you think?
I'm going to say John Deere, just because it
did you
cleans
just
better.
read The Only Good Indians? Is that why you're asking this?
Beau is extremely fond of wood chipper.
I am, man. If I could get away with it with some people, yeah.
So you have one. It's a
if I had one, probably a John Deere.
John Deere.
I don't have one really, though.
I appreciate that you actually had an answer to that, because honestly, if someone asked me, I'd be like, I don't know who makes wood chippers. So you're well prepared. But kind of on that frame, so I know that I'm always interested to hear you talk about, how Bishop Rider kind of guides the story, guides the conversation for you. I would love to hear how sort of the origin of how that came about, like when you started kind of hearing that voice and telling that story, and how that came about.
Okay. Well, first, it really didn't start with him. It started with his sister. I just had this picture. It's a terrible picture too, that this girl had been raped by 6 men in masks. And then I'm like, fuck, I would want to kill these people. And that's the origin of Bishop. So I made him the brother, and then just started from there. And I think I wrote about 3 or 4 stories, realized they were sort of connected. And then I wrote a 5th story, but I put him at like near the end of his life. So that's how I ended up doing his life, or writing his story out of sequence. So I jumped back and forth in time. And like I said, I've killed him in the 3rd book, but he's still alive in the 4th book.
Well, I like that, because I like that we get to revisit without any unlikely, rising from the dead or that sort of thing. So I appreciate that we get to continue with that.
Laurel, have you seen that before, or seen much of it? Because I think it's so unique. The first story, if I remember right, in A Better Kind of Hate, he's younger. And then like 2 stories later, he's 70 or so. And then a story or 2 later, he's, looks like midlife. It jumps back and forth. So
I have not. Yeah, I think that's one of those interesting things that seems very uniquely Beau Johnson in the way that it's done. And I like that too, because I feel like the things that would otherwise be this like big reveal that you feel like you have to work towards is something that we sort of have gotten a hint of. You get the, oh, well, that was before he lost his redacted, So
okay, he's only got 1 leg. Yeah.
Okay, so okay, yeah. I'm terrible with spoilers. I don't know what would be a spoiler, but I like that, because the way that you write is very glancing. It's like, and I do think it's important to say that too, for in particular when you talk about the motivation being the sister. This is very hard-hitting fiction. It is very brutal fiction. But for anyone who is concerned about gratuity, in my opinion, it's incredibly well done, because the violence is seen just in this very glancing, like just gives you enough of a moment to go, oh God. And then it's moved on. And I feel like, a lot of the stuff that he's avenging that is not on screen, it's not something that is, exploited or made gratuitous at all. That's my little plug for that. While it still is also incredibly brutal crime fiction. So
that's a really good point. I noticed it, but I didn't really think of it in that way, that that it is very violent, but it's not these aren't torture porn stories. You know,
Right.
a little bit of it happens and then the rest happens off screen.
It's a fine line, and I try and ride it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you do it beautifully, because I like that the focus is on, it also doesn't put these people, you know, these gross, awful people, like, it doesn't make stars out of them. You know, it doesn't put that spotlight on them unless it's the one that's burning their face off. And I have to say, I appreciate
Yeah.
all that
Well, I
stuff.
remember sometimes I get some questions, and like this next book, I had a question like, is there going to be a big bad? And I'm like, well, you do realize that Bishop is the bad guy. And it's like, sometimes they forget that he's murdering people, right? So anyways, I just won't want to give, there is certain people in Bishop's world that have multiple stories, but there's no overarching, it's just evil is the bad guy, really.
You know, Laird said something to me one time about the Roger Zelazny series, Nine Princes in Amber, if you've read that.
I have not.
Well, for those who have, Corwin's the protagonist, but Laird said to me, you know, when we were talking about this, he's actually the bad guy. The guy who he paints as the bad guy, his brother that he's trying to get the throne from, is painted as the bad guy. But when you go back and look at it all, his brother's just trying to do what's right. Corwin's trying to take the throne from him just because he wants it. You know, so that little speech will make sense if you ever read that series. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I like seeing things that way too, though, in particular when it's not overt. It's not someone telling you, okay, I am telling you this, you know, it's an origin story for this villain. It's a whatever. Because the thing about it is, it's not necessarily about making them relatable. It's about the realization that everyone is the protagonist in their own story,
Yes.
no matter what they do. And there are terrible people in this world that do terrible things. And there's also just generally jerks, and none of them get up in the morning thinking, oh no, I'm the baddie. None of them think that. So it's always interesting to see that it, you know, from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's the protagonist of their own story, and I won't keep butting in. I'm sorry, but
It's your show.
You make good points, and I just have to. There's the dictionary of, let's see here, the dictionary of obscure sorrows, and one of the words that they made up is sonder, S-O-N-D-E-R, and I think it's beautiful. Sonder is the realization that everybody around you, even strangers, are living a life just as complex as yours. Sometimes you're hurting so bad and you feel like you're the only one, but after all your hardships, you start to realize that everyone is so unique and you aren't the only one. It's actually not the best quote I was looking for, but it basically talks about how, you know, you might be just a supporting actor. You are a supporting actor in everybody else's story that you meet. And in some people's story, it says you might just be a car that drove by them at one point in their life, or a light that went on that they saw, or some lady that they saw typing in Starbucks on their PC, you know, on their laptop. So, yeah, everyone's the hero of their own story.
Unless you know you're a villain.
Well, unless you're a solipsist, I guess. Then you really are.
Yeah.
I was watching The Good Place, so I actually know what that word means, and I'm very proud of myself right now.
It's pretty cool.
What was that? The Book of Obscure Sorrows?
It's called The Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows.
Oh, The Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. That sounds sad and wonderful. I'm going to write that down.
That's exactly right. And, oh, here it is. The realization that each random passerby, this is so much better, is living a life as vivid and complex as your own, populated with their own ambitions, friends, routines, worries, and inherited craziness. An epic story that continues invisibly around you like an anthill, sprawling deep underground with elaborate passageways to thousands of other lives that you'll never know existed, in which you might appear only once, as an extra, sipping coffee in the background, as a blur of traffic passing on the highway, as a lighted window at dusk. Yeah, it is sad and beautiful and true.
I like the phrasing there. Although the idea of being an extra sipping coffee in the background of someone else's life seems restful. It's just, I'd be
Doesn't
okay
it?
with that. I would be completely okay with that. Well, random question, just because you were talking about getting started at about like age 15.
Mhm.
Do any of your boys write? Are they looking at it? Are they
No, it's a whole different age now, right? With these phones, like, right? It's different. And back then we didn't have phones. Like I'm old enough to have a Walkman, right? So, one of my boys is good at English, and one of them does read, but the rest they can't be bothered yet, right? I hopefully maybe when they get older, like I said, I didn't really get back to it until I was 32, 33. So, yeah.
Well, I guess that's a good point. They might come back to it.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm amazed that one of them actually reads and orders his own books. So that's always nice.
That's a win right there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well, have you thought about who do you think would play Bishop Ryder in a movie?
I've
Tom
been asked
Cruise.
this question too, and I've always,
Tom Cruise.
What's
Just like
that?
Jack Reacher,
yeah, Jack Reacher. You know what?
because he's so tall.
Yeah, I know. But you know what? Tom Cruise, there's probably been only one bad movie that he's done that I didn't care for, and that was The Mummy. But the rest, the man, he entertains me, and he gets a lot of flack.
Yeah, he is
But you know
pretty
what? I'm
entertaining.
old enough to remember him jumping on that couch too. So some of it is
Yeah, but
Well, so Tom Cruise, his science fiction movies are completely watchable.
Oh,
I think they've
yes.
been very entertaining, and I think Minority Report is brilliant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the one
he gets
that
too much. He gets a lot of stick, but I like his science fiction stuff.
yeah, Edge of
What was
Tomorrow.
that one he did with Emily Blunt? I really
Edge
liked
of
that one.
Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, or Live, Die, Repeat. I don't know. It had two different titles, but I hope we get a sequel to that. That would be pretty cool. That was an underrated movie.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
But back to your question, I've always said an older writer. I always had someone sort of like Charles Bronson in mind. I'm old enough to remember Charles Bronson too. So, and then Ray Stevenson when he played the Punisher, I'm like, oh Christ, that's Ryder right there. So sometimes he's in my head too. Yeah.
I have to say that, and it may just be the similarity in name, but Detective Batista, I always see as Dave Bautista.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
because you can see he's like that hulking, quiet. I'll
even
punch
bigger
you through
than
a
Ryder,
window. Yeah. So I could definitely see that. I would like to see that cast, but
Too bad
that would
about his
be-
face. Yeah.
it is too bad about his face and all the other stuff that happens to him. No one gets away.
No one gets
easily.
away with much. Yeah.
No.
At least he can grow that beard out. Yeah.
I wish I could read my own handwriting. That's bad. Okay. Are you, and with that, we don't have to get too political because I'm very, anybody who follows on Twitter is pretty well aware of your general stances, but are you ever tempted to kill off not like kill real people, like go on murder sprees, but like in your books, kill off like more realistic or recognizable figures?
It's never happened in a book, but I did write a story when Trump pulled that thing with the protesters in the Bible and that. I was so upset. I wrote a story and I killed a bunch of the Republican Party and Trump included.
I think I remember reading that actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Punk Noir magazine published it, but it was very cathartic.
I can see that. See that.
Yeah, I believe I skinned McConnell alive. And Lindsey
as a Kentuckian, thank you.
You're welcome. And Lindsey Graham lost his head. Poor guy. Yeah.
That's already happened. That happened years ago. Okay. Yeah. You're right. No politics.
Yeah, I was trying to skirt around the edge of it. It would be so satisfying because you have such interesting and inventive ways to kill people.
Well, sometimes I'm like, man, I'm running out of, oh, wait a minute. I could kill him like that, But yeah, there is the variety is, I think it's harder as I get deeper into writer's narrative I try not to repeat things, but sometimes I go back at it from a different perspective, which is pretty cool too when I started doing that and see it from the other side or another character in his narrative. Sometimes I make him a secondary character in his own narrative, which
The
he doesn't
real
like too
problem
much, but-
is, when you run out of ways and you're doing all these deep dives on the internet to try and find new ways to torture and kill people, and then the police are knocking on your door. Mr.
Yeah.
Johnson, I'd like to have a word.
Can we see your browser history? Yeah. Yeah, I remember watching Seven, and when I first realized that they flag those books sometimes. Yeah.
Seven, I was going to bring up Seven to you.
Oh yeah.
Because in one of the stories, it's not just her head in a box. It's
Mm.
a lot more than her head in a wheelbarrow, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yes, you're right. There was a wheelbarrow. Yeah.
There was a
Yeah.
wheelbarrow involved.
Yeah.
So
I was thinking about the suitcase. The suitcase.
Oh, the suitcase.
The suitcase was intense.
Well, thank you. It's weird how stories generate, like that story with the wheelbarrow. There was one throwaway line in that I wrote 10 or 12 years ago, and it ended up he became a secondary character, huge to Bishop's life. One line. It's just weird how that happens, how it generates years later. So that's always fun.
Yeah, kind of leave a trail of crumbs for yourself to
Yeah,
to
that's
to
what it
come
was.
back to.
Yeah.
Do you feel like does it seem like Bishop is gonna keep doing that? Is he gonna let you work on something else, or are you?
Well, I think, yeah, I'm working on a fifth book right now, and I think that's going to be it. I thought I could get to 100 stories, but it looks like maybe it's going to be about 95, 96. So that's close enough, but I just don't want to, outstay my welcome, right? So
That seems incredibly unlikely because it's very inventive. But
well, thanks.
sorry, everybody always says that. It's like, oh, your book's not quite out yet. I'd like to ask you about your next thing. What have you done for us lately, Beau?
actually,
Well,
Matthew Carpenter uses that exact line.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he says to the author, "Okay, this is all fine and good, but what have you done for us lately? What's coming next?"
Well, yeah, it
Don't
is.
you,
It's
Matt?
like I'm still pumping the last book, and I got this new one coming out, and it's what you're working on, right? Like this book that's coming out in July. I finished it back in 2019. It just takes so long for things to get out, right?
Yeah.
What's the name of that book? And is it on Amazon already for pre-order? Or do you know?
It is not. It's called Brand New Dark, and some things happened at my publisher, so they were between cover artists. So I'm still waiting for a cover, and I'm putting my own covers out there to try and drum up, interest. But hopefully this week I'll have a cover drop and a pre-order. Yeah.
So, are you doing in any other medium? Because this is the golden age of streaming services looking for material. This sounds like it would be an interesting series to. They don't shy away from gory violence, that's for sure.
I can see this on HBO or Stars.
So, anything you're allowed to tell us about, you can do it, pantomime, so you won't have to say anything.
I missed the question. Like, is the question like, what's the new book about?
Are you got anything coming up in other media or any interest?
No, I just write. Yeah, I do these little book nook videos, but that's about it. Yeah.
I want to ask
So-
about those too when Laurel's finished talking.
Sure.
And before I forget, as Laurel said, it is a pretty unique layout, format, whatever you want to say, the stories. And I really did, all kidding aside, think of that word Sonder when I was reading A Better Kind of Hate. Because, you have this one big boss, bad guy, who's been done wrong by a couple of his henchmen. And you're like, okay, this is a random story in this, and this is how it goes. And then he has everything to do with Ryder, which you find out a story or two later.
Yes.
So it's, yeah.
Now, what I wish we did in A Better Kind of Hate is what we did in The Big Machine Eats and Olive in the Berm. We put a header, a Bishop Ryder story, which I wish we did for A Better Kind of Hate, because there's only 9 in there. And I've had some people say they thought are these all connected stories? And they're not all connected. There's some standalones in there, right? So I just wish I could go back in time and put that little header in there in that first book. But what are you going to do?
still though, I recommend to people, and readers don't always do this, but I recommend to people when they read your books that they do read them in order, not just skip around and say, oh, this one in the collection looks like my kind of thing more than this one. And, read the collection in order, because they're in that order for a reason. So
Yeah, we picked that order. Yeah, I don't really say they have to 100%, but it probably would benefit people to do it that way. Yes.
yeah, I think you'll get more out of it. So Laurel, anything else? Got lots of questions yet?
Probably. I've got a couple more, but one is,
You got to make him sweat.
oh, dang. I forgot I was supposed to be mean. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
I've already asked about the favorite wood chipper. I feel like that was my hard hitter. So,
Like he doesn't already have a wood chipper, and we're supposed to believe that.
I have my favorite gifts. Yeah.
Well, and part of this just is because I think in large part it's like we miss everybody, and we've all been online for so long, and it's like we kind of want to run into people. But I remember talking to you before about how inaccessible a lot of the United States cons were from Canada, and there's so many fantastic Canadian writers too. I'm like, are you guys gonna, and listen to me say like you guys are just this big consortium. Canada is like 8 of you all, right? And you all live real close to each other. Is there, but you're going to put together like a Canadian con? And if so, what would you call it?
Whew. Yeah, what would we call it? Something to do with maple syrup, I imagine. Maple Fest? I don't know. But I think we talked about this before. I really like that Voucher Con. I don't know if anyone's ever been to that con, but it came to Toronto in 2017. And I hear it might be coming back in 2022 in Niagara Falls, which I can make. That would be awesome, even if it's on the other side of the border, right? But it's just so, if it's in like Seattle or anywhere, it's just the plane fare on top of the hotel. It's just too much money to do. So I don't get to go. I've only been to one con, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the bar more, really, if I'm going to be honest. But that was the best part. Yeah.
Plus, you guys are building a wall, right, to keep the Americans out.
Oh man, you guys are healing. I think.
Yeah,
you got
I think
there,
we are.
So yeah. I don't think we need a wall now.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, there was one other one I was going to ask if you, because I'm interested in too, because you started out with King.
Mhm.
At what point you kind of made that transition to crime, and if you can think of any like formative, Laird Barron tweeted about this the other day, which I thought was a cool question to ask, like who some of your maybe formative contemporary writers would be that got you, really pointed in the direction that you are as far as crime goes.
Oh, Matthew C. Funk, for sure.
Mm.
Yeah, he was, and I transitioned like when I got back into writing at like 32, 33 or whatever. And I just stumbled into crime fiction, and he was at Shotgun Honey, and he's got like 27 stories there. And I'm reading a few, and then I think they weren't all done at the time. They weren't completed, but he'd done 20 or something, and it was every Friday. And it was just, if you guys ever get a chance to read them, they're just, they're 500-700 words, and it's just perfection, some of them.
Nice.
And I fell in love with crime fiction and him for sure. He doesn't write anymore, or that I don't know about anyway. So I wish he would though.
Have you read the Matthew Scudder series?
I have not.
If you like crime fiction,
I do.
It's by Lawrence Block. Definitely read them in order. You can find those lists on the internet, of course. I think the very first one is The Sins of the Fathers. So, I'd be very interested to know what you thought.
Okay.
And if you only read one, read When the Sacred Gin Mill Closes. That's a really good one. Probably my favorite.
I think you gave me another book the other day about time travel. I gotta check out at one point. Like I have enough books to last me till middle of 2022 right now. My pile is just crazy, but anyway, we'll get through it.
Yeah.
That's not an excuse to not get new books.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Oh no, I still get new books.
Okay. Just so I want viewers to be out there, to be clear out there.
Yes, you can
It's
still
okay
buy
to have
books.
a a to be read stack bigger than your house is okay.
Is that why you're giving away all your books?
I'm making room.
Oh, okay.
I
You're
think
keeping the collection fresh.
his stack is like 2 houses high, so he has to whittle it down to 1 house high. So
Right.
Well, I can't talk about crime fiction without mentioning Matthew Scudder, Beau. So I just love that series. So
Well, I
if
haven't
you
read
do
anything
read,
from Lawrence Block, but I hear good things.
yeah, if you do read one of those, let me know what you think.
Yeah.
So, anything else, Laura?
I can hand it over to you.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I'll do any better than you. You did great.
Thank you.
I first bumped into you more or less online when you did a little video about one of Laird's Isaiah Coleridge books.
Mhm.
And then I've seen several of your videos since then, and I just really wanted to ask you about those because they're so funny to watch, and I always end up with a smile on my face when after I've watched them. Just I guess tell me a little bit about that. Is that how you get out? Hey, I've read this and I really love it. Is that basically what they're for?
Well, there's a little story behind it. There's a genesis. So, like I
Sure.
said, that VoucherCon that I went to, I was brand new. I was green, and my first book had just come out, and I knew nobody in the crime community. So there was these guys that took me under the wing, took me out for drinks and dinner, and then the people that helped me get published, they read the book, they blurbed it. I started taking pictures of me. I bought their book, and I was holding their book, and some people liked it. I did it for their birthdays or whatever. And then I sold the book at our craft shop. We have a dinner cruise business here on the property, and we have a craft shop. So I thought, me and my wife in the off season, we try and figure out ways to create new revenue. And so we thought, what if we made a little library? So we made a little library. I called it my publisher, picked 15 authors, brought them in. Nobody bought books. I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do? So I thought, what if I did little videos and give a little taste of what these books are about? Lo and behold, we started selling books. And then I'm like, well, what if I showed some love for the books that I have at home of other authors that I liked? And that was the genesis of Not Beau's Book Nook, which I called the Monday Love, I think. And then Steve Weddle from Do Some Damage contacted me, I want to say October 2019, and asked me to come on Do Some Damage. And then Not Beau's Book Nook has been there every Friday since. That's it.
Yeah.
That's my
Well,
story.
you're very good on camera. So, and I
Gotta
don't
get
know
it
if this is
tomorrow,
the
yeah.
100th take or the first take when you do these, but they always bring a smile to my face. And that Laird Barron one, for example, was my first one. And you're like, I don't know if you're eating a sandwich or something, but you're looking away from the camera, and then you're like, oh, hello there. And I'm like, this
I need some new material. Yeah.
is great. I like this.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the authors do too.
Well,
So,
it's a pay it forward. So I don't like
yeah,
to say
exactly.
it's altruistic. Like I've benefited from it too. It is put me on other people's radars that might have not have looked at me as a writer. So it's a win-win, really.
When you help others, you get help too. And that's exactly how I came across you, is the video about Laird. So yeah.
Yeah. My buddy of mine mentioned his books, and I bought those first two, and I'm like, oh man, I love this Isaiah Coleridge character. And I have the third one now. I haven't read it yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
So you told Laurel a bit about your influences, your crime influences, and you mentioned your TBR list just now.
Mhm.
What have you read recently that you enjoyed, that you really liked?
Sean Cosby just knocked it out of the park with Razorblade Tears. I was my first ARC, and I tore through it. He's got another home run on his hands, in my opinion. And I just finished Come Closer by Sarah Gran, which was a pretty good little possession story. I think it was possession, or did it happen in her head? Anyways, it was good anyways. And right now I'm reading Betty Rose, the Cannibal King by Hale Piper. And I'm digging that. Yeah.
Do you want to name? This is kind of a loaded question, because then you know, in the heat of the moment when you're asked this question, you inevitably forget someone and think about it later. But
Mhm.
who are some of your favorite authors working today? And I emphasize some because I'm sure you can't list them all, but
Yeah, you can't list them all, right? You end up playing favorites too, I feel. But people that I make sure that I want to read is, like I said, Sean Cosby. You know, I fell in love with his voice when My Darkest Prayer. I've said it before. He's going to be around for years. The guy's got quite a voice. And Laird, now that I've discovered Laird, we'll probably have a love affair for the rest of my life, right? So, and then of course King. I will never not buy a King book. I've read some of his son, but I can't say that I'm as excited as I do when I get a new King book. I've read a couple of this Hightower lady, and I dug both of those. Whatever she got coming next, I'll probably check out too. Yeah. But I was going to say, I told you about 3 books I'm reading, and I am reading Robert McCameron's Swan Song. I'm on page 27,000, and it's good.
27,000. Yeah.
It's I can see why it's compared to King's The Stand. You know, they both are different but the same. Yeah.
What about Boy's Life by McCammon? Have you
This
read
is
that
my
one?
first McCammon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I picked a brick. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a big book.
it is.
What are some of your favorite Stephen King books, since you've mentioned him
Oh,
a couple of times?
well, let me start with short stories because
Sure.
Survivor Type is my absolute favorite short story, and then followed by The Raft and The Jaunt. But of his books, man, I've taken The Journey twice now. So The Dark Tower has always done it for me. I'm glad he didn't die when he got hit by that van, because that would have sucked.
Yeah.
And Salem's Lot, and Misery, of course. Misery is the one I started with. 11/22/63. That floored me. There's just so many. There were one I didn't really care for was maybe a Buick 8. Wasn't my thing. And I think King said that too. Like he wanted it when he retired. He retired. He does 2 books a year now. Back then, he didn't want to regurgitate himself. He'd already written Christine, and now all of a sudden he's writing about a Buick. So that was when he was going to retire. But if he had something to write about, he would. And he's still been, for being retired, he's pretty prolific.
Yeah. From a Buick 8 is just one of those books that you need to bear in mind going into it, that this is not really a story so much as it is an experience. My friend Kelly Young says there's no third act.
You could say the same thing about the Colorado Kid.
Well, that one I have not read.
That's one of it. He's got like 3 novels out in the Hard Case Crime series.
Yep.
There's Joyland, which is wonderful.
I loved it.
I really enjoyed the Colorado Kid, but you have to be prepared for the fact that there's no denouement, there's no resolution, nothing sums up. And then he just came up with his latest hard case crime book called Later, and it's equally enjoyable to Joyland. It's really a good book.
Well, have you read Doom McKee?
Yeah, it wasn't my favorite either.
Okay. I really like that one. I think that one's really underrated. Again, there's not a tremendous amount of story. It's more about the experience of him recovering and the supernatural aspect and everything. But what about N? That's a novella.
Oh, N, the short story. Yeah, that was a great.
Yeah,
I loved N.
I
Yeah.
love N.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And especially the audio experience of the N is wonderful.
Hearts in Atlantis has always been a favorite of mine too.
Yeah.
I think it's five little novelettes in there or something. I'm trying to remember. It's connected to the tower though, anyways.
Yeah, and I recently reread if you know that one. You are.
Yeah.
It's about 20 years old. It's when Kindles were first coming out. It's about a guy who buys a Kindle.
No, I think that and The Plant I never read because it was on. Was it something like that? The Plant too? Was he bringing out installments right when something online? I can't remember.
That doesn't.
There's 2 I haven't read. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I was just curious since you brought up Stephen King a couple of times. So yeah, he's definitely influential.
Oh yes.
I guess if you like Stephen King, you like horror. Are there some other horror authors / books that you read or have read that you really
Yeah,
enjoyed that you want to recommend?
Clive Barker, I read when I was younger. I haven't read anything in probably 20 years, but I remember The Great and Secret Show I loved. And Straub's the Ghost Story. And then, well, and that I think when the Talisman brought me into Straub, and that's why I checked out the Ghost Story. I like that. And I can't say I'm just sort of getting back into horror. Like I was seeing Laurel's Whispers in the Dark, and that's really the tipping point that got me back into horror a little bit. So I try and ride the line between crime and horror now.
Did you read Black House, the follow-up to the Talisman?
Yes, I hope we get a third. I really do.
That one was intense. I have to say, I actually like that one better than Talisman. I feel like there was
And
more.
I think if I remember correctly, we're left on a cliffhanger, are we not?
I think so. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And some of the stories that were contained within that, like that the bikers told at the beginning or whatever, to kind of illustrate that, I was just like, I want that story too. Like, I
Yeah.
want that fleshed out. I need to know what happened here.
Mm-hmm.
I love Black House.
So you like crime and you at least somewhat like horror, depending. Have you read the Charlie Parker series by John Connolly?
I have not.
Well, the reason why I think you might be interested, Beau, is because this is a series that, first of all, you have to read it in order, but it starts off and it's pretty much pure crime and pure mystery, very well written. And then as the series progresses, it's like slowly turning the hot water up. First, you don't even notice it, and pretty soon you realize that the water is getting warmer and warmer. And what I mean is the paranormal, the supernatural starts kind of sneaking its way in slowly as the series progresses.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really well done. And I really liked it. When you start from this real world scenario, and then slowly get into the supernatural, then I think it even hits a little bit harder.
Sure.
So anyway, yeah, I know you have a lot of free time on your hands and you don't have any books to read, but so yeah, check out the Charlie Parker series
Okay.
by John Connolly. Yeah, I can't recommend it highly enough.
Okay.
So yeah.
I think Laird or I think in the second book, the Isaiah Coleridge, there's a little bit of that or a taste of it. And then from what I've heard, maybe the third one goes a little deeper into the supernatural. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That's what I think I've heard.
It's more like it's a seasoning, a spice, a hint.
Okay.
It's not really in your face overt. You could interpret it as being completely non-supernatural, but if you want, you can read it that way too.
Okay.
Which I love when it's done right. Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that series. I wouldn't say, having read his cosmic horror fiction, it's really just there's a hint, a suggestion, and I think it works really well that way. I don't know if I would have liked him taking this series. Who's kidding? It's Laird Barron. I'd read it anyway.
Seconded.
Let's see. What else did I have on my list to ask you? When you were growing up, were you reading Stephen King, or did you read just Stephen King, or? Well, that's
yeah,
question,
I bought that book for my brother, like I said, and he wouldn't read it, and so after Misery, I found everything that I could at the time and just ate it all up. Right. I didn't really branch out until there was no Stephen King left for me. So probably, I seem to remember reading The Dark Tower when I was probably 19 or 20, and I think there was only 3 books at that time. And then it took forever for Wizard and Glass to come out, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember that old story.
To get through all the Stephen King books. Yeah.
Say again?
It could take you a while to get through all the Stephen King books, for sure.
Oh yeah. I remember an old story when he had written The Wastelands, and in between that and Wizard and Glass, he'd get fan mail, and someone would send him, "Hey, the bunny will die," and it's a picture of a bunny wrapped in on a chair, or someone, she's dying of cancer, and she wants to find out how it ends before she dies, but he goes, "I don't even know how it ends." So, those are the type of. I don't get much fan mail, but I imagine that was different.
Yeah. I'm curious too, what have you watched lately? TV movies that you really, really liked?
Well, I tried to get The Quiet Place 2 for my son's birthday, but they're all back in the theater in Canada now, or
That was
in
actually my
America
second
now.
hour. I was going to ask everybody, is that not on Amazon to rent at home?
Not in Canada. I think you can in
I
the
don't think
States.
down here either. I didn't see it anyway.
Well, I know they've opened up the theater, so I think they want to make their, you know, yeah, I don't think you can make $1 billion by streaming it online. So, but we're watching Mayor of Easttown. So tonight's the finale. So here's hoping that finishes well. And I'm late to the game, but I'm in season 2 of The Wire. And then my middle boy has got me into, I'm almost 50 years old watching anime. So we're watching this Death Note, which is actually
Yeah,
quite good.
Logan
And
told me about that. Yeah.
And Attack on Titan. So anyways, my wife thinks I'm crazy, but it's pretty good. I like it.
I don't know, how is Attack on Titan? I keep
Yeah,
hearing about it.
I'm invested in giants eating humans. Like, what can I say?
Yeah. Let's see, what else do I have? What about, I guess, writers working today that you read their work and you're influenced a little bit by it. You're like, that's kind of neat. I want to incorporate that at some point.
Well, I try to go at writing like I just try not to. I don't want to mimic, because I felt at the beginning I was mimicking Stephen King, and it wasn't until crime that I really found, I think, what I feel is my voice. So I try to go about writing is like I don't want to be like anybody else. So I can't say that when I read something I'm like, oh, I want to do that. I just try and be me.
So for someone who comes up to you and they're like, you're and at a party or whatnot, and you say, I'm a writer, when they ask you what you do, and they ask you what you write, and I imagine you'd answer something like crime fiction. How would you describe Bishop Writer to them without spoiling, but trying to interest them enough that they're like, yeah, I got to go read this? What kind of man is this guy? What's his deal?
Well, I usually just say it's very dark. It's not everybody's taste. And I always go, he's a Punisher archetype, right? So in Death Wish, the older people understand Charles Bronson in that, and I just say it's pretty much like that. But I want to say I don't go into a room and tell people I'm a writer. Usually I don't. People find out I'm a writer and like, I didn't know you wrote. I'm like, well, I'm not out on the street going, hey, I write, So
What can I do to put you into this book today?
Yeah. Well, sometimes, and then when they do find out, sometimes people have asked me to put them into stories, and you know what? Sometimes I oblige. But I do it out of love, never malice.
So you killed the Republicans out of love?
Well, except that one time. Yeah, there was no love there. Some of those humans are just makes me shake my head.
Tell us about the next book and when it's coming out.
July 12th. And it's 25 new Bishop Rider stories from his past, his present, and his future, which is, like I said, he dies in the 3rd book, but I always said, what can I do? Can I send him out in a blaze of glory, or do I let him do what he's been doing for 40 years? So I let him from about age 25 to about roughly 70. He's just been killing people and getting away with it. There's been close calls, and one of them happens in the next book. Or no, maybe that's the 5th book. I don't know, I'm mixing up the stories now. But anyways, he almost gets caught one time, and it's coming up. And so, like I said, all these stories are just straight Bishop Rider. It's the first book that's all Bishop Rider. I never thought I'd write a book in the first place, but then now I have a book of just Bishop Rider, which I never thought would happen. So that's pretty cool.
In the 4th book, is it the same format where it time jumps around, or?
Yep.
Okay, that's good. I really like that. Yeah, I just became 50, so I think of things and then 30 seconds later I can't remember them. So I don't know what I was going to ask there. Anyone else have any questions for Beau? I don't want to hog all the questions.
Can you tell me a little bit about your writing process? Like, do you sit down and be like, today I'm locking myself in my room and I'm going to write all day? Or do you just walk around and be like, that's a great idea? And
number 2,
what you do? And you
Yeah, I'm a what if guy, right? Something comes, I'm
Okay.
like, what if, right? So that's about it. But some people do. They sit down and whatever, 5 hours a day or 1,000 words. But yeah, that's never been me. You know, I broke my collarbone in 2017, and I was writing the second book, and you know, I couldn't. I wrote half of that book, the last half, on a phone, and I can't stop. I've written the third book on the phone. I've written the fourth book on a phone. So I
Wow.
write it on the phone, transfer it to my computer, do the editing, but I just
That's
can't go
I was
back to just sitting on the computer anymore. So it's
so
pretty good too, because if I'm
okay.
waiting to pick up a kid, I can just write while I'm waiting for him to finish work or whatever.
The
So
important question is are you typing it on your phone or are you doing voice to text?
oh, I tried that voice to text. It's not the same. I got to write it.
So
So,
do you feel that
stupid
you
question. I'm sorry.
oh
Do you do it with like two thumbs on your phone, or do
No,
you like have a
one
little
index finger.
keyboard?
One
Yeah,
index
no,
finger.
nobody
Wow.
over the age of, I don't know,
I tried the
40.
thumbs, but my thumbs are too fat, you know.
Yeah,
So it's just
Logan's
the
always
index
going
finger.
like this and everything. I'm like, how do you do that?
But I
I'm like,
watch my kids do it.
uh,
My kids, they're perfect at it. I don't know.
yeah,
It's just that age, right?
yeah, exactly. I know what I was going to ask. Oh, I'm sorry, Melissa. You had another question.
you know what? I'm not quite 50 yet, but I kind of forgot what I was going to say. So it's not
I'm
just
sorry.
you.
Well, maybe you'll remember
I'll try to
after
remember
I
later.
ask the question that I forgot to ask. I reprint of the first Jack Reacher book. There's an introduction by Lee Child, the author.
Okay.
And one of the things that he said that really stuck with me is that he, with the characters and the books that he read as a kid and as an adult, it wasn't so much the situations that kept drawing him back. It was the protagonist. He mentions Travis McGee, for example, pretty unique character. And he set out to create a character, Jack Reacher, that was just a really interesting character, a really unique character, where people would maybe even subconsciously, the reason why they kept coming back to the series is, you know, what has Jack Reacher gotten himself into now? And of course, it has to be a good story. He wasn't saying that it can't be a good story, but the reason why they come back is for that protagonist, not so much for, oh, this sounds like a good story in the series. Would you agree with that? I mean, Bishop Wright, it's a pretty unique character.
Oh yeah, I think it's always about the character for me. Like even his side characters, I try and spread the wealth of mutilation or destroying people. You know, I don't always have him do the killing. You know, he has his buddies to help him out, or sometimes they have their own plan of how they're going to kill some people. And yeah, I think it's always character for me.
Yeah, what Batista, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. If I interpreted the story right, in one of the stories, they're putting a monster out of his misery, and Batista started it. And by the time Ryder gets there, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but Batista is
He's having
crying.
trouble.
Yeah, he's crying. He's saying, "I just can't finish this."
Yeah. So at the beginning, Batista wasn't really, I'd say, 100% on board with Ryder's methods.
Right.
But he comes around, and they end up doing everything together. But it was a harder time for Batista to go around extinguishing people.
Well, it reminded me of a Spencer book where Spencer finally has to kill a couple of bad guys. There's no way around it. He's trying to protect two women, and the only choice here is to kill these two pimps who are assholes anyway. But so he kills one, his buddy Hawk kills the other.
Mhm.
And when they drive away, after about a mile, Spencer has to pull over and he throws up because of what he just did. And Hawk doesn't, because he's done this many times before. And Hawk says something to him like, you've been able to play by your own rules till now, but you're not in that situation right now. You know, you have to play by my rules. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it made me think of that.
Mhm.
A Catskilled Eagle is the name of that particular book in the Spencer series.
Mhm.
If anybody wants to check that out, I think that's the best book in the series.
And then I go, just to go back to Ryder, in his later life, he gets a new partner, and he's the exact opposite of Batista. He's right. He's there from the beginning, wanting to slice and dice.
Yeah. Okay, guys, anything else? Crickets?
Crickets.
All right. I think I asked you everything I was going to ask you. I asked you about the next book. I'm sorry, that's called again. What is the title of that one again?
Brand New Dark,
Brand New Dark. And that comes out when?
July 12th.
Okay.
From
Now,
Down and Out Books.
These are all Bishop Ryder, correct?
Well, the three behind you, there's Bishop Ryder stories in there, but there's other standalones. But this new
Right,
one is
right,
just
right.
all Bishop Ryder. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are your plans next? Are you going to keep writing about Bishop Ryder, or are you going to branch off into a different crime fiction series or horror or something else?
Well, I'm working on a fifth book I'm calling Old Man Ryder, and it should be the last of the Bishop. And I don't know. I have no plans. What's gonna come what may. I'm a pantser, so I don't know. We'll see what hits me.
All right. Well, thanks for talking with us.
Well, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Thanks for being patient with me. I had to reschedule you a couple of times, which I try never to do, but you were very long suffering, so I appreciate it.
It's okay. It's understandable.
Best way to buy these books, Amazon, or you have a website as well, right?
Well, I would say Down and Out Books or Amazon.
Okay.
You can hit my website, but I'm very bad at keeping it up. I think I'm only through 2 books there. I'm a book behind. Well, 2 books behind now. So I would just say Down and Out and Amazon.
Down and Out Books and Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. For those who are just listening in their car and can't look at the title, it's Beau Johnson. So yeah, look him up on Amazon or Down and Out Books. And bear in mind that these are hard reads, but I really, really enjoyed them. A couple quotes, if I can find them here. Give me just a second. Yep, here they are. Let's see. A better kind of hate will haunt you like a specter. An uneasy collection, Beau Johnson crafts each story with masterful precision and an icy cold edge. Each page, each word escalates the tension, ratchets the foreboding, dripping with psychological terror, nerve-wracking suspense, and characters unhinged. A better kind of hate is an offering of patience, plans, and revenge. Johnson's talent is spectacular and terrifying. That's from Marietta Miles, author of Route 12. So
I paid her a lot of money for that. For her.
Spectacular and terrifying. That's got to feel good.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate. This new book, Laurel blurbed it for me. She take a look at it early. So thank you again, Laurel, for that.
Absolutely. I was glad to get an early eye on it.
When did the first one come out?
2017.
Okay. You're getting these out pretty quickly.
Well, I had a deal
relatively
in place.
Speaking.
What's that?
Relatively speaking.
Oh yeah, I had a deal in place in 2016 with Double Life Press, but it went under. So I thought that was my one and only chance. Gone. But then it ended up on Eric Campbell's desk. Had a better kind of hate, and a year or so later, it was out. So yeah, there's about 15 months between each book, it seems.
Yeah.
I've always said writing begets writing, because when I started editing all of them to burn, I hadn't written for a while, and as I was editing it, some ideas came to the top of my head, and all of a sudden, 6 months later, Brand New Dark, I had a semblance of a manuscript, I say.
So Laurel, how do you two know each other? You're at some virtual cons, or?
Actually, I think it probably was Beau's Book Nook. Yeah. I think you read Whispers, maybe. Was that? I don't know if we had contact before that.
Well, I had seen people talking about it, and then when enough people talk about something, I'm going to look into it and do a deep dive. And you do your books that you want to read. I look at them, and you know, if they're all 5 stars, I'm like, okay, it could be good or it could be all friends. And then if you got all 1 stars, the 1 stars I sort of tend to stay away from because you can only handle so many ones. You're always going to get 1 stars, but you can only handle so many. But anyways, everything that I was looking at, it looked good. So I pulled the trigger and I loved it. And I made a video about it. Yeah. Took some pictures, you know, sort of boost the signal.
which is much appreciated. And it's part of what I feel like that's one of those things. One of the things I was going to ask you, but I feel like it's sort of almost self-explanatory is, you know, what advice you would give to like new writers starting out who's trying to market themselves. And I feel like that's a big part of it.
Yeah, it is. It's tough. I have a hard time with self-promotion. So this actually, it's a good question because it helps me, for me to help other authors or boost them. It makes me feel better about putting my own stuff out there. I try to do the 80-20 rule. So 80% other authors, 20 myself. And it works out. Now, if I got a new book coming out, I'll adjust and I'll do a little more of me. Yeah, I think you have to, but at least I'm still okay with it, right?
Yeah.
I just don't want to be that guy that, oh, that guy, all he does is talk about his own stuff, right? So that was the whole thing.
And there are plenty of authors and other creative sorts on social media that do that.
Oh yeah,
And
there is. You see the ones that do, and you see the ones that never do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't believe in that life is a zero-sum game. I believe that just because someone else's success doesn't mean that I can't be. And, you know, if I think someone's doing something cool, I want to promote them. It's just that simple. You know, and that's what you're doing with us. So are most of these on Twitter, or do you keep them all in one place?
Well, you know, I found lately too, yeah, it's on Twitter. Yeah. You know, I've thought about a YouTube channel, but I can work within the 2 minutes and 20 seconds you get on Twitter. It seems I can get out what I want to get out. Wouldn't want to drag it out. But I've just found like the way that Facebook and Instagram work, the suppression, they want you to buy ad space or to boost your, you know, I get like, say, Thursday's Book Nook video got like 600 views compared to 15 on Facebook. I'm like, I could take that, you know what? Not everybody likes me. I'm an acquired taste, but I'm like 600 to 15 is just such a huge gap. So I just usually stick to Twitter.
And that tag is what on Twitter?
Just not Beau's Book Nook.
Sorry?
Not Beau's Book Nook.
Oh, okay. So you have 2 Twitter accounts.
Oh, sorry. Oh, my Twitter account is Beau Johnson at 44.
Okay.
Or at Beau Johnson 44. Sorry.
So not Beau's Book Nook on Twitter.
Yeah.
As well.
I think that's the hashtag, not.
Yeah, that is the hashtag. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, the hashtag. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. All right. Yeah, that's a good way to look it up. Just do that hashtag. All right. Well, thanks for being on the show, Beau. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to talk about some nerd stuff for a while. Do you want to stick around, or do you need to go?
I can dig some nerd stuff. Sure.
What about you, Laurel?
Tiny just got home, so I'm going to go.
Okay. Well,
before he
thanks
comes
for coming
in here
today.
and
It's good to see you again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
good
you
seeing
all
you,
too.
Laurel.
Thank you so much.
It was a great surprise.
Wonderful.
I thought you'd like that. Yeah, I didn't tell him ahead of time.
Yeah.
So thanks,
Have
Laurel.
a great night, guys. Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So, okay, there's a new anthology called Howls from Hell, and there's an introduction by Grady Hendrix, which says a lot, and Stephen Graham Jones says quality horror by true believers who can write. What more can you ask for? Oh wow, Laurel blurbed this one too. Didn't know that. So that's on Kindle and in print. Just go to Amazon and type in Howls from Hell, and you should run right into it. It's only $3.99 on Kindle, so that's a pretty good price. And I put their Linktree link in the show notes. So there's that. What else we got to talk about? You guys will be so proud of me. I got my Goodreads page up and running, Melissa. So
I saw, but you know what? I tried to click on it and I couldn't find you. And I was hoping someone else that I'm friends with add you so that I could easily click on your. Because
I'll,
for some reason I click on it and then it's like I have an app on my phone, but it
I,
doesn't open up the app.
I'm no expert, but
I
yeah, I'm
was
definitely there.
I know you are, but for some reason I was struggling the other night. So I'll
Okay.
try. But I'm proud of you. Good. We
Thank
can
you.
know what you're reading.
I just put it in the side chat, and I'll put it on. There we go. For the viewers as well. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Pete keeps talking about keeping track of what you're reading. And I think that this is a cool way to do it. It only took me 10 years to get on board, but I like it. And I added another shelf called to reread. You know, if I've read a book and I want to read it again, put it on that instead of just the to be read shelf. So yeah, I really like it. And it helps me keep track of the 5 or 6 books that I'm reading at one time, you know. So anyway, I sent you the link just now. I wanted to mention this because someone else asked me about this in the last day or so. The Rim of Morning by William Sloane. Introduction by Stephen King. Now, this is the edition, came out, oh gosh, when did it come out? These are older, these are 30 stories, of course. But this edition came out, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. Intro by Stephen King, and it contains the stories To Walk the Night and The Edge of Running Water. And I seem to remember To Walk the Night as being a really great early cosmic horror story. So if you haven't read this, check it out. So I actually stuck this on my to reread pile today. So what else? Melissa's proud of me, so I can coast on that for a while. Oh, this is cool. Ellen Datlow emailed me, and she's got another anthology coming out called When Things Get Dark, Stories Inspired by Shirley Jackson, which,
Ooh.
yeah, I mean, 2 names here, Ellen Datlow and Shirley Jackson. So this is going to be a good book. It comes out October the 12th. She sent me a copy of it to look through, and that was just today, but I glanced through it and it looks great. So it is already up on Amazon if you want to go there and pre-order. I know that publishers and Ellen and the authors involved, they always appreciate that because it gives them some idea, excuse me, of the demand what kind of demand they're going to get. So When Things Get Dark, Stories Inspired by Shirley Jackson, October the 12th. Rick, I must have your opinion on Whitechapel, season 3, episodes 5 and 6, and you're muted right now. There you go.
That was the cannibalism one, right?
The cannibalism?
Oh, that's season 4.
No, yeah, that's season 4.
I'm trying to remember which ones were.
London After Midnight.
London After Midnight.
Which is why I knew this would probably be one of your favorites.
It was, even though technically London After Midnight is probably overrated.
Probably.
Because I've read the novelization and I was going to fish it out, but I have it buried somewhere. They came out, they published a novelization. It had been published around in 29, and it was reprinted within the last 6 years in an expensive edition. And
yeah,
basically, it didn't surprise me because I had seen the remake that the director was Todd Browning, who did Dracula, London After Midnight, and remade it as Mark of the Vampire with Bela Lugosi. And basically, Mark of the Vampire and London After Midnight follow each other very closely. The only difference is Lon Chaney played two characters, a police inspector and a vampire, and they broke those characters up. They remade the movie in the 30s.
Well, for
But-
those who don't know what we're talking about, just real quick, it's a series called Whitechapel. It's on Hulu and I think Amazon Prime.
It's also on HBO Max.
Okay, it's a BBC crime series. So
BBC?
I think it's BBC.
It lasted 4 seasons, and there are about a total of 19 episodes.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that Line of Duty on BBC. I think that's BBC too. I've always liked that.
Well,
Is
the
it like-
first season
is it
Beau,
like-
It's sort of like CSI.
Oh, okay.
It's set in Whitechapel, and it starts off with somebody duplicating the murders of Jack the Ripper,
Oh, okay.
and then a whole series of crimes will unfold over the following years. There seem to be callbacks in one way or another to something that happened previously in Whitechapel.
it's like CSI, only interesting. So,
And unfortunately, it was going to link all the crimes that in probably the last season, but then they got canceled.
Oh, they got canceled.
well, the
I-
first. Go ahead.
I really enjoyed Hannibal, and they canceled that on me too.
Yeah.
Bastards.
I'm hoping that maybe they'll do an audio drama and
No, that would be cool.
Big Finish does a lot of cult British TV series, and Dark Shadows as well in the United States.
Well, season 1 is about a Jack the Reacher,
Jack the Ripper.
Jack the Ripper copycat in present day, and season 2 is about the Cray brothers. I'd say the weakest season is season 2.
I thought season 2 was done very well.
Oh, did you? Okay.
And I had never really followed the Cave brothers. I just know that Tom Hardy made a movie.
When I say that, I still love season 2, but it's just, to me, it was the weaker of the 4 seasons, is all I'm saying. Now, season 3, they break their format. The whole season isn't one story. Instead, there's 6 episodes in season 3, and each story is 2 episodes.
Okay.
So in season 3, episodes 5 and 6, it's about this killer who escapes a mental institution, and noise just drives him crazy. And he killed his family because he just wanted to enjoy a quiet dinner. You know, his mom and dad and his sister. And that's all I'll say about it, except to say that a fictional version of London After Midnight, which has been lost, of course, to history, is supposedly it supposedly drives anyone mad who's seen the movie. You know, shades of King in Yellow, right, in the play. And they say that Calvin Mantis, the guy who escaped from the sanitarium, that's how that's what made him crazy, is because he's got a copy of it. So, you know, obviously it's a fictional version of everything, but it's just really interesting. So,
Okay.
and then in season 4, they do kind of a Charlie Parker, John Connolly thing. They get a bit supernatural and try to tie in the events of the first 3 seasons to some grand master plan of someone. What would you say, Rick? Attacking them, stalking them, something like that.
Someone is an evil person who may or may not be immortal, who is committing crimes based. They don't necessarily acknowledge this, but they're borrowing the plot of Agatha Christie's Curtain. If you read the book, Murder is the same method, which is very unique. It
And
goes back to Shakespeare.
yeah, at season 4, there's some pretty creepy scenes. This is not a spoiler. I'm just setting up the scene a little bit. In the character that Phil Davis plays, who's the number 2 man in the squad, he keeps getting freaked out by these. Their headquarters, whatever, is this very gothic building, which, you know, in Whitechapel, I guess that's no surprise, but he keeps hearing these footsteps in deserted hallways, and it freaks him out, and it's very effective. I've gone through the series probably 3 times. It's one of my favorite series. So
Whitechapel. Okay.
Whitechapel.
Only 19 episodes.
Yes, but definitely worth the watch.
Okay.
So,
I really felt sympathetic for the protagonist, the police inspector.
oh yeah,
He's a very sweet
absolutely.
man, and a guy you're really going to have empathy for, especially what happened in the last episode.
Yeah, he's very he's got problems, OCD, things like that, and you know, he's not this perfect macho guy. I love it. It's great. So, and his number 2 guy can't stand him at first, and they become the best of friends as the show goes on.
I also like the historian mystery writer they bring in.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, that actor wrote quite a few of the episodes, I think, Rick. So anyway, if I can convince just one person today to watch Whitechapel, today I have not lived today in vain. So,
And just a minute is something for Beau's sake.
yeah.
I've watched all of Death. My son got me to watch all of the Death Note,
Oh yeah, we're on episode 9. Yeah.
and that was just fantastic.
Yeah, it was. It surprises me, this anime. I always thought it was for kids, but you know what? It's a pretty good storyline. Yeah.
It kept my interest throughout the whole show, and I had no
my-
idea how it's going to be resolved.
But my wife and son really liked it too. So my son got my wife to watch something that's actually pretty horrific, which it took some doing.
But yeah, you still haven't done it.
Nope, I haven't.
I really have to watch Attack on Titan because everyone I talk to about it says it's great.
Oh, it's such a great story. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. My son Logan, he's pretty into anime, and he's pretty discerning. If he likes it, it's probably good. So
Yeah.
All right, before I go on to anything else on my list, does anybody have anything on their list they want to talk about for the next few minutes here? No? All right. I'll do other work. That's fine. Bridget, say something.
Did you finish Wolfen yet?
No, I'm at 67%. Did you not look at my Goodreads page? Do I have to do
I just
everything?
barely saw it, so hurry up. Then we can
Okay, I'm hurrying, but it's surprising the hell out of me.
What's that about?
the Wolfen.
Yeah,
I mean, I
sort
think
of
I have
about
an idea.
werewolves, but not
I was gonna
really.
say,
It's
Yeah.
more of a species that could be the cause of the mythology of werewolves.
ooh.
That's just a highly evolved creature that still exists in the shadows.
Written
I
by
love that.
Whitley Strieber. It's set in the late 70s.
There's an
Okay.
excellent movie version.
I
I
was
need
gonna
to
say,
watch
is
that
that the
now.
movie? Like the movie is based on that book?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh.
Kel- was
Kelly
finished.
likes the Wolfen book, and he tells me that the movie version wasn't good.
I haven't read the book. I've only seen the movie.
Yeah, I feel like
Oh,
it just
Somebody who doesn't know the book
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes
works
sense.
very well.
What I like about it is that it's told from the perspective of the police officers that are investigating the murders. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Well, I'm gonna
Um,
read that too.
Yeah, there you go. It's on audible.com as well. What else do I got here? Where did I put it? Oh, I posted a couple of days ago on Twitter and Facebook, and I said, what are some of your favorite existential horror novels or stories? And I got some good answers to that. Do you guys have any in mind?
Well, of course I do.
I figured.
So this idea was sort of, at least I looked at it, cosmic horror that isn't Lovecraft. You know, 'cause,
Yes, absolutely.
Lovecraft ain't the end all and be all, wasn't necessarily the origin of it. You know, people go all over the place. Okay, so the first thing that I'd like to suggest that is just completely sort of blew my mind was The Red Tree by Caitlin Kiernan.
Mhm.
She's a really powerful author, and this is her masterpiece about a woman who may be slowly losing her mind, about a place that may be a portal to another world, about the author being completely, the narrator being completely unreliable, and touches of verisimilitude that make it seem like it's a real story. It's just brilliant book. It should have won the World Fantasy Award, I think. So that's number one. Number two, if you want what is essentially kind of Lovecraftian horror, where damn little is explained and nothing is overt, The Croning by Laird Barron is another towering masterpiece. It's
I've
actually
heard good things. Yeah.
It's very absorbing. It's incredibly well written. The characters are memorable. The prose is great. And then you get to the end, and the ending is completely horrific. Like the last couple pages, you're going like, "Oh my god!"
Somebody posted about it in one of these threads and said somebody mentioned The Croning and Frank replied to it and he said, "Yeah, I'm in the middle of The Croning. I really love it, and I'm really worried because I think something bad is coming." And I said, Laird Barron book. So The Croning, no. This actually turns into a romantic comedy where everybody learns a little lesson about love and life, and so.
And
Good.
someone learns about the true meaning of Christmas.
Exactly.
I- yeah, that was
Okay,
on my
so-
list too. Just to
Okay.
say.
At
so-
theaters soon, starring Steve Martin. Yeah.
Third book is harder to get a hold of. It's by Brian Hodge. He's a wonderful author. He's actually
hard
thinking
now,
about
yeah.
moving away from writing. I think he's had a really hard couple of years with people close to him having problems. And he's written on, I've seen on different fora that he may be giving up writing altogether, which would be such a shame. But he wrote this book, I Will Bring You the Birds from Out of the Sky. And it came in it's a novella. It came in a limited edition from Cemetery Dance. I think over 1,000 copies were printed, so you should be able to get a copy. It's got like 4 or 5 pictures in it that are quite vivid. I forget the name of the artist, but the whole story is wonderfully cosmic and just so beautifully written. And you start off, you have no idea where they're going with this because it's focused on art. They're looking into the origin of an artist that they've never seen, who's incredibly magnificent.
The other book that was mentioned is almost impossible to get a hold of now. Which one was that?
You mean I Will Bring You the Birds from Out of the Sky?
Now there's another title mentioned. Don't worry, keep talking. I'll look it up.
Well, I've always made it a point to pick up his novellas because he writes a lot of cosmic horror that is completely not Lovecraftian, and this is a really cosmic horror book, just so beautifully written. The prose is wonderful.
Yeah,
and it really
damn good.
expands what you think about. Oh, what do you mean by other human horror?
Okay, any others, Matt?
Those would be the 3 that, if you want to go exploring, those would be just some standout books.
I'll read a couple from the list here on Twitter. Let's see. All right, here we go. There it is. Sorry, Twitter. Still trying to figure you out. Michael Cisco says Private Keep Out by Philip McDonald. I'm sure that Matheson repurposed its ideas for his Twilight Zone script, and then the sky was opened. Speaking of existential horror, and when the sky was opened, probably my favorite Twilight Zone episode. Roadside Picnic, and then the Open Curtain by Evanson. Several people mentioned House of Leaves. Several people mentioned Stephen King's In, which we talked about a little bit earlier, Beau. Stephen Graham Jones mentions Valis. Valis always leaves me a little ontologically queasy, which I guess means suspicious of this reality. For movies, it's coherence all the way, Stephen says. That was a good movie. I liked it.
How do you spell that? I'm sorry, Mike. How do you spell that?
Spell what?
Valis?
Valis? The
Valis?
Philip K. Dick book. Valis. Stephen King's Revival, which may have the most terrific ending of any book I've ever read. What else do we have here? A Little Something for Us Temponauts. That's Philip K. Dick too, isn't it? A lot of Legati mentions. I won't go through them all. The Gone World by Tom Sweterlich. I keep going back and forth on whether I should read The Gone World or not. People say it's great in social media, and then I get to Amazon and there's a bunch of 1-star reviews. So, I don't know. Picnic at Hanging Rock by Joan Lindsay. Oh, yeah, Laird Barron's The Croning. And then on Twitter, what do we have? Or excuse me, Facebook, what do we have? The Visible Filth by Nathan Ballingrad. That's a great recommendation. Resume with Monsters by William Browning Spencer.
Hang on that recommendation. Yes. I think you got to be cautious. As I read that book, it was not cosmic at all. It was someone's internal psychiatric monologue that his inner voices took the names of Lovecraftian monsters.
Yeah.
But it ended, as I read it, it was more a psychological deconstruction.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I just think I'm careful to recommend that book that people kind of know what they're getting into, because it may be very different than what they think it is.
Phoenix San Diego says, I just read House of Leaves and I questioned my whole existence afterwards. Bridget wrote Beyond the Rift by Peter Watts. And then that's all I have for that thread. I've got one more thread to give you guys. And then I've got a couple. Wow, another House of Leaves recommendation. Go figure. I've heard Paul Tremblay is good at this type of horror, says someone by the name of Joanna Hale. And I answered, I'm not sure I've heard of this guy. So, Dark Side by Dennis Etchinson. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've read that one. The Road. Is The Road existential horror?
In the sense that world's been appended. And
yeah, and not the way I think of it. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream by Harlan Ellison. I don't know if that's existential horror either in the way that I think of it. And someone said Dream of a Mannequin by Thomas Ligotti. I'm mentioning this particular one. That's Elizabeth Lopez. Thank you, Elizabeth. That was the very first Ligotti story I ever read. And I was just blown away. It's fantastic. Here's a book that you can't get anymore. Displaced Person, also known as Misplaced Person, by Lee Harding, written in the late 70s. I first came across it when I was a kid in the 80s and read this. It was in the young adult section, but it can be read by a young adult, can be read by an adult. It's really, I can't say anything about it. I would ruin it, other than it definitely fits into this category. And yeah, I think that's all I have. Anybody else?
I was just going to say, I also on my list have Barron's The Croning. It is such a good book. Like it's both like beautifully written, but also horrifying.
Yeah.
So I think that's like a really high recommendation. And the other
Sold.
one is, yes, to the man in the hat and the tie. The Cipher by Kathy Koja. Probably not pronouncing her last name correctly, but
You are, I
that
think.
is so good. I mean, it's both existential and cosmic horror. It's very grim. It starts out that way, but it's also I think it's just really well written and dark. So I really like that one. The other one I wanted to say, which I feel like it's tenuously cosmic horror, and it's not in the vein or a descendant of a Lovecraftian horror, but Susanna Clarke's Piranesi, like that came out recently, came out last year, I believe, is a beautiful piece of work. Now it's labeled as fantasy, but I would say it's definitely goes in the realm of both weird fiction and I think like cosmic, maybe not horror, but cosmic fiction. It's really interesting and beautifully written. I actually had recommended it to a friend and she just called me and I said, oh my gosh, I finally read that book. I couldn't put it down. It's very different and interesting, but I can't.
How do you spell that?
It's Piranesi. She also wrote Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. It's surprising. Like I wasn't expecting it to be what it was. So, but again, it doesn't, I think, come from the same. I think when we look at cosmic horror, like most of it's descended from like a Lovecraftian viewpoint. And I wouldn't say this, I think this is definitely not. So it might not be everyone's cup of tea, but it's very good.
I was going to say,
yeah, please go ahead.
The reason that I mentioned Beyond the Rift by Peter Watts is because of the first story, The Things, where it's set in the universe of John Carpenter's The Thing, but it's told from the perspective of the alien. And I thought that was very interesting because doesn't you think about human life very differently, and it gives you a different idea of the motivations of the thing from its perspective, which
would be cool.
It is really good.
That particular story is actually free to read online.
Okay.
What was it called again?
The Things, but it's in the book Beyond the Rift by Peter Watts.
I seem to remember reading a Kuntz story called Seed years ago, and it was sort of from the perspective of the alien or something he finds in the forest, and this from that perspective, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
I got to say about Peter Watts, Beyond the Rift, it's because his first real success, he was a research biologist, and his first real super success came with a series of 3 books called The Rift, the Rifters series. And while I'm not too keen, I wasn't as keen, say, on the second 2 books in the series. The first is an absolutely bloody brilliant, you could say, it is completely existential horror. Because what he did was he took a normal thing in biology and contemplated what if it was different. So like you see in the Hounds of Tindalos, when you read it, it's like there's good and there's evil. But you could also read it as there was choice A and choice B, and the universe chose choice A, and everything in choice B is pissed off about it. Well, in the Rifters, there's this bacteria they found at the bottom of the ocean that is its gene for incorporating sulfur from the environment is like 10,000 times weaker than other organisms, something like that. And so he just thought, hey, what if this was this bacteria that was living in an isolated, say, one of those vents, and it evolved, it could incorporate sulfur 10,000 times stronger than other life. And what would that mean if deep sea exploring released that into the world? And now there's choice B in biology, which is more effective than choice A, which is our evolutionary tree. It's fabulously brilliant. I'd recommend it to anybody, that first
Okay.
book.
He's going to be on the show either later this year or the first part of next year. So
Cool.
got to nail down his schedule, but that'll be a good episode. Any of you guys get a chance to read sitcom from Strange Little Horrors yet?
I did.
You did? What'd you think without spoilers?
I'll just say it absolutely did not go where I was expecting it to go. So I like that. Like I thought, oh, I think I know where this is going to go, and it ended in a different way. It was really creative.
That ending kind of stays with you, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, I thought it was very effective.
It's one of those stories you can't talk about or even say it's this kind of story without giving it away. In fact, even the Amazon synopsis, it's a small book. There's 6 short stories by a writer by the name of Amy Cross, and it does the kind of the standard, this story is this, blah blah blah, and they shouldn't have done that, because right away they label this story. So if you're going to read this book, just take my word for it. And it's kind of like the trailer for some movies, skip the trailer,
Yes.
script the description on this one. It's only 99 cents on Kindle, and it's also on Kindle Unlimited. So if I'm wrong, you're out $1. But I don't think I am. And the spoiler one is the one that they spoil is called Sitcom. I think you should start reading this story with absolutely no idea of what it's about. So, but that said, it takes this particular trope, Melissa, and does what I have been waiting for someone writing in this trope to do forever at the end there.
It had a satisfying ending while not being cliche at all. The ending was not which I really liked, because sometimes you read and you just know where something's going, and it's okay that it goes to that place, but it's nice to see when something just goes out somewhere you were not expecting, but it still really works.
Yeah, because there are some books that you read where I am spending time in this person's world and I love being in this person's world. And there's other books that you read that you're more like, I'm exploring. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I'm excited to see what happens next. And this is one of those stories. So I cannot recommend this short story sitcom highly enough. And it's in a book called Six Strange Little Horrors by Amy Cross. And don't read the book synopsis, and it's also available in print. But if you have a Kindle and you have Kindle Unlimited, all you got to do is borrow the book. Or if you have a Kindle and you don't have Kindle Unlimited, it's just 99 cents. So that story alone is worth more than 99 cents. So after the rest of you have a chance to read that particular short story, let me know what you think about it. So.
Yeah, I would love to discuss it a little bit more. Obviously not here because it would have spoilers, but there's questions I have, and I'm curious what other people think as far as what their perspective of what happened is.
Well, I just hope I hope I've convinced the audience, anyone listening now or later, to check this story out, because well, I'm just repeating myself. I think very highly of the story. I just discovered it 3 days ago. and I was blown away. So,
What was the name of the book again?
Strange Little Horrors.
Amy Cross?
Amy Cross, correct. So, and that's all I got, except for I was going to ask you guys, because you on our Facebook private thread, you guys were always talking about what we're watching or thinking of watching. Have you guys watched anything lately that you think the rest of us should watch?
That's hard. I just finished the series. What is it? Jupiter's Legacy? Is that the name of it?
Yeah, the new superhero series.
Yeah, but it's in the camp of not exactly the same, but dystopian superheroes. Like if you just watched the animated series Invincible, which my younger son convinced me to watch.
Hey,
Or
so did
if you're
mine.
watching,
I saw that too.
That was awesome.
yeah,
liked
well,
it.
also, or if you like The Boys, where the superheroes are bad guys, well, it's not exactly that. I really got put off by the first 2 or 3 episodes. What I thought was unnecessarily corny and cliched family dialogues. But as it got more away from that and into the story and the characters, I liked it more and more. So I'm actually
I
looking
heard
forward
it
now to
was
season.
a really unsatisfying ending.
It was a very interesting ending. It didn't go where I expected. Certainly set them up for the next season.
Did you think at one point that was going Lovecraftian? And they had,
Kind of, but no.
they name check Lovecraft, which they realize some people would think that.
Yeah, but okay, that was another. Okay, another another kind of situation where they acted like that he was famous in 1929 or 30. And I don't think any more than a handful of people across the country who regularly read Weird Tales knew who he was. I thought that was a fun name check that was anachronistic.
Yeah, it's also, if you compare this to Lovecraft Country, he seems to have an inordinate number of African American readers.
Right. It's just okay.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Melissa, Bridget, Rick, Beau?
I watched 2 mockumentaries this week. I watched both Horror in the High Desert and Howard's Mill. And I have to say I much preferred Howard's Mill. I thought it was excellent.
I actually was going to ask you guys and I forgot, because I did watch Horror in the High Desert. I've not yet watched Howard's Mill. And you guys know how much I love these faux documentaries, and like Lake Mungo and Savage Land, and they're kind of, the good ones are few and far between, and they're not found footage. It's different from found footage. It's a faux documentary.
It was well written. It had a good script, good acting. It was not scary at all. I wouldn't.
Which one are you talking about?
Howard's Mill. I'd be
Okay.
hard pressed to say it was horror. It's more like science fiction, weird stuff going on.
Okay.
It was really creepy.
Well,
yeah. And I also thought there was one kind of very clumsy bit of writing near the end, but it didn't take away from it. I ended up enjoying it, but it's not, I wouldn't call it horror.
well, I did see Horror in the High Desert last week after we talked about it a bit. And look, this filmmaker, I think he's got a career ahead of him, and he's talented, but the payoff for Horror in the High Desert isn't really worth the time involved. There are some very spooky moments near the end, but it takes a long time to get there.
Like a fairly decent jump scare or 2.
Yeah. But whereas Lake Mungo, and I know you don't like it, Matt, but for all the sane people out there, Lake Mungo takes a while to get through. But each part of the movie or faux documentary, you're discovering more and more as you go on, And I think it got a bit repetitive just to keep the running time longer. So
I agree. Yeah. I think that it was almost like you need a little bit more. Like I think they did a good job building it as if it was like a realistic thing. I think that was what they were trying to do, was to be like, this is so realistic. So then when you go into what happens at the end with the found footage, it's more of a shock. But I do think as like a today's, like in our, like with all the media we have, I think that like, you know, all of our choices, like I think there needed to be either like a little bit more payoff or some more going on in the beginning part of the film.
yeah,
I think
but I
a
will
lot
watch
of
Howard's
time-
Mill based on you guys' recommendation.
Yeah, you should. But I think they spent a lot of time in Horror on the High Desert building up sympathy for the character, but then the main guy that disappeared. But then at the end, you're kind of like, well, yeah.
Well, and then you guys pointed out, you guys pointed out a bunch of logic holes that I hadn't had time to think about yet. And the more you guys and Pete talked about it, I was like, yeah, that doesn't make any kind of fucking sense at all, you know, and just on and on. I'm like, okay, I can't recommend this, but it was a really good first effort. And I think this guy will do good things. So, anyway, Hector doesn't like Lake Mungo either, Matt, but I want you guys to know that I will still be friends with you. I'll still be friends with you, Hector, even though you guys are wrong about this.
Secret ballot.
Secret ballot. Well, you didn't have to agree with him and write me either. Jeez,
I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
I know, but
Can't
you're
pretend.
wrong. All right. Anything else we want to mention before we knock off for the evening?
I just want to say thanks for having me again. It was nice meeting you all.
No problem. I really appreciate you coming on the show. And I stood this guy up a couple times. Well, I didn't stand him up, but you know, last minute rescheduling would be more accurate.
Yeah.
And he was very patient with me. So thank you very much.
Not a
Appreciate
problem.
it. So
All right.
yeah.
Reminder, prize, this famous
Night, guys.
Monsters from Filmland archive issue. If you want to win it, send an email to ezineprizes@gmail.com.
Got to play to win.
Godzilla in the subject heading. And the last thing I'd like to know is, Bridget, when is your Kickstarter going live?
If all goes well, on Tuesday the 1st.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I'll email you back tomorrow about it, Bridget. I promise.
Thanks.
So, it just looks great. I think you'll do really well with it. So, and you got a lot of friends backing you up. So,
You.
well, I've seen the other things you create. They're all pretty cool. So I'm sure this will be too. So
We'd much rather support you morally than with money.
you get that all the time. So anyway, thanks everybody for being here. Who do we have next week? Let me see. We have Mike Allen. Okay. Anyway, go to Amazon.com or Down and Out Books and type in Beau Johnson, Beau Johnson, and read everything he's written. This is really gritty, really hardcore crime novel stuff. And I really enjoyed it, whatever it so far. So thanks, Beau. Thanks for being here. Did he leave already?
Oh, yeah, he took off.
I think he did. He said thanks and left. So anyway, that's how you buy a Beau Johnson book. And what do we got after that? June 13, Trevor Henderson and Jed Shepard will be here. June 27th, I'm just going down the list a little bit. I'm not mentioning everybody. June 20th, Christopher Buhlman interviews John Horner Jacobs. Another easy day for me. June 27th, Philip Fracassi and Cody Goodfellow. So none of us will get a word in edgewise there. Richard Chismar, we rescheduled him to August the 8th. Helen Datlow on the 26th of September. Victor LaValle on the 3rd of October. Oh, I already did schedule Peter Watts. Peter's going to be on October the 10th.
Cool.
of this year. So just a few of the names. If you want to see the complete list, just go to Lovecraft Easing's website, lovecrafteasing.com, and click on podcast at the top left and scroll down, and you'll see the upcoming guest list, as well as a list of the panelists with links to their websites and or creative endeavors. So anyway, thanks to all of you for watching and being with us here on Sunday night. Thanks to all of you who are watching later and listening later. And we will see everybody next time. Thank you very much.